No, Casper's washed. It's chai, dog. I kid you not. It's chai, bro. And people will think I'm hating, man.
Because you see, at that point, the value is transactional. Is that I give you something and people show me love. And so at that point, these transactional relationships become very toxic very quickly because we lose sight of people's value beyond contribution.
They're talking about Casemiro. He said you must leave the football before the football leaves you.
Ooh.
Cassper needs to leave the mic before the mic leaves him.
I think the question, who are you and what do you stand for, kind of stands out the most because once that question is answered, it creates ground for us to understand what is it that you're willing to either die for and stand by. And MacG has been very clear when he did the interview with David Mashabela.
So they forced me to get into Y Academy, which was a blessing because that's when I got introduced to Howard Stern.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, in one of the lessons, they played private parts.
Yes.
And I'm looking at this guy, like, fucking hell.
I want to be this guy.
I want to be this guy, you know?
Person that he saw and admired their character was Howard Stern. And that becomes very interesting to see how MacG pans his character to the world when you look at what Howard Stern was willing to do in his quest to be willing to offend.
Do for a living. Look at this. I just want to say something. A black woman and a white man shaking hands in Washington. Who says there's racial problems, man? Who says there's racial? Get your hand off me! You catch some kind of disease? Come on over here. You're a young person, are you?
Yes.
Or are you impersonating a young person?
I'm a young person.
You are a young person? You know who I am?
No.
You ever listen to my show, Howard Stern Show?
Yes.
You do? You like it?
Not particularly.
No, what don't you like about it?
You're rather crude.
I'm rather crude?
Yes.
Well, how do you mean? Give me an example.
You're rather disgusting, and I don't care to give you an example.
I figured I'd want to see her, you know, so without further ado, maybe open the box and let me take a look at Debbie in her final resting place. So that's Debbie, huh?
You're doing weird things.
Wait, Debbie wants to say something.
Even for the 90s, picking up and shaking human bones was pretty grim. You could tell the crew was mortified.
Dude, I don't know, man. This is really wrong.
You think so?
Yeah. Debbie would
What do you
love
mean it's
this.
wrong?
Debbie would love this.
People were safe from jokes, especially not the beloved, iconic 23-year-old Mexican-American singer Selena, who was tragically shot and killed by a crazy fan in Texas in 1995. The next morning, Howard proceeded to play her music with gunshot sounds in the background, then repeating over and over how much he hated the music while mocking Hispanic people.
Spanish people have the worst taste of music. They really do. They don't like depth. No, they don't like any depth. It's all like, you know, let's dance and pretend that every human being in our country isn't corrupt.
Keep in mind, Stern's show was broadcasted in Texas at the time, where Selena was slain. Outrage erupted, with Hispanic leaders in Texas threatening to boycott radio stations that air Howard Stern. The Columbine High School shooting occurred on April 20th, 1999, in Columbine, Colorado. Two students, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, carried out a mass shooting at their high school, killing 12 students and a teacher, and injuring many others. For the shooting, he was talking about it on his show and had some very interesting things to say.
There was like really good-looking girls running out of there with their hands over their heads.
Yeah, I think the bomb teams are still working.
Did those kids try to have sex with any of the good-looking girls? They didn't even do that. At least if you're going to go yourself and kill all the kids, like, why wouldn't you have some sex?
Yeah, I would think that I would want some sex.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to...
So they forced me to get into Y Academy, which was a blessing because that's when I got introduced to Howard Stern.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, in one of the lessons, they played private parts.
Yes.
And I'm looking at this guy, like, fucking hell.
I want to be this guy.
I want to be this guy, you know? Because before I met Howard Stern, the stuff I was doing on air didn't make sense. I was like a rebel without a cause.
Okay, yeah.
So now when I watched him, I was like, oh, okay. So I'm not crazy. You know what I mean? Okay, actually what I'm doing is more aligned to what this guy is doing. Yeah. And that's when I started researching him, read all these books, and then I started researching other guys.
Our lights just came back, so I was kind of like very much experimental when the lights came back for this video. Please do give this video a like if you do like it. Tell me your thoughts down in the comment section. Took a minute. I know this is not normally the set you see. This is how it looks in the back when I am shooting a video right at front. So the back tends to get messy because I gotta move everything out and thingy. So do like the video. If you absolutely love it or enjoy it, if you're in the discipleship class, this is practically an extension of that. The recent subject of Cassper in your vest and MacG kind of show you what I'm talking about. When a person comes to a point of taking their personality to grow their own brand at the expense of others, but at the expense of others, not in a sense of bettering that person by correction and whatnot, kind of like what apologists kind of do, not in that manner, in the sense that they will derive a negative narrative for the sole purpose of driving their own numbers.
Hi, bro. And people will think I'm hating, ne?
Yeah.
But I kid you not.
What's that famous line it has now?
I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get to Hosh Karamai more. What? Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna get to that one. There's a saying in football. One pundit said this. He said they're talking about Casemiro. He said you must leave the football before the football leaves you.
Ooh.
Cassper needs to leave the mic before the mic leaves him, dog.
Ooh.
I kid you not, bro. Like when I saw his performance, and what I realized from the crowd is people were vibing to his old songs.
Of course, bro.
So like Dom Shebeleza, they were going ham. The Sunbed Arena was like everybody was.
Yeah. Cassper got some nice songs in his
and
catalog.
then he ended with Hosh Karamama what. People started leaving, dogs.
It's the same thing that we're talking about here. Why is it that MacG is like this? Why? It's the rejection. The rejection and desire to be loved pursues him. And so as a result, it's never enough. He has to go at you. He has to tear apart. So realize you're dealing with people who are not dealing with their traumas. That's your entire life. Road rage. It's you dealing with people who are not dealing with their life. When people lose control in their personal space, they now portray that in the public space. That's why he says, carry thy cross. You carry your cross because carrying the cross is dealing with the traumas correctly. You look at the story of Jonah. Jonah is afraid of being rejected. Jonah is afraid of being mocked. Doesn't want to have to go sit there and explain, God said, if you guys repent, you won't get, he would rather that the fire happens. He would rather that the destruction happen because of fear of rejection. Look at Joseph. Joseph is a perfect depiction of how you deal with trauma. Joseph has his brothers completely reject him. They throw him off, they sell him off to thingy betrayal at its highest. When they come back, what does he do? Does he want to pay them revenge? No. What he does is he paints to them true responsibility. Can you be responsible if I ask you, go get your brother? Now, do you care about your brother enough to want to protect him? You're literally dealing with people and their traumas. In each and every single day life, you're dealing with people's trauma. Someone has a terrible household, comes from a terrible household. And what has happened back there now dictates what happens over here. You are now just collateral damage. Because you see, at that point, the value is transactional. Is that I give you something and people show me love, or they show that they value me, or they show me that I speak for them, or I speak in between what represents them and things. And so at that point,
Kid you not, it's chai, bro. And people will think I'm hating, ne?
Yeah.
But I kid you not, you must leave the football before the football leaves you.
Ooh.
Cassper needs to leave the mic before the mic leaves him. The Sunbed Arena was like everybody was.
Yeah. Cassper got some nice songs in his
And
catalog.
then he ended with Hosh Karamama what. People started leaving, dogs.
these transactional relationships become very toxic very quickly because we lose sight of people's value beyond contribution. You see, if your only value is that you can contribute something, think about how governments look at people. Welfare, government grant, SASA, where does it come from? is that people have value, dignity beyond their contribution. So you see, there's some of these traces that we see when we look at all these systems, is that they tell us these values. Even a person who might have done something criminal and they have some type of a mental situation that they're going through, they may be excused at of going through the trial because of what their mental state is like. It's because we understand that that person has value beyond what he contributes. A person who does a crime and is taken to jail, even though they are a terrible contribution, we see value in them, and so we'll keep their rights. They still have a right to a lawyer. They still have rights. Why? Because an individual beyond contribution has value. But now, with the kind of relationship that MacG and his issues has exposed him to, is that it's transactional. He gives the audience something. The audience chews that up. They regurgitate it to social media. And as a result, that's what gives him value. Because he's used to that transaction, that the value is only when you transact. The value is only when you trade something. It's a very dangerous viewpoint. That's why Christianity phases itself in the manner that it does, when it speaks about we're not from monkeys. Evolution, the whole evolution nonsense. We're not from monkeys. Why? We have value. We were not created just by accident. We didn't just stumble into this image. We didn't just stumble and wake up and all look like this. It was that there was a design, and that design was intelligent and gave his value in us. So to understand this whole controversial picture of what MacG has accepted as his motivation to doing this, as he says.
Because that's when I got introduced to Howard Stern.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, in one of the lessons, they played private parts.
Yes.
And I'm looking at this guy, like, fucking hell.
I want to be this guy.
I want to be this guy, Because before I met Howard Stern, the stuff I was doing on air didn't make sense. I was like a rebel without a cause.
Okay, yeah.
So now when I watched him, I was like, oh, okay. So I'm not crazy. You know what I mean? Okay, actually what I'm doing is more aligned to what this guy is doing.
And he thought, I'm justified in this behavior. He didn't think to correct it. He thought this was the way to peddle himself or the way to pose himself out to people. Now, there's something that I personally do not like about this type of approach, is because you're going to be willing to offend a lot of people for the sole purpose of driving those numbers. You're going to continue in the sense of rebellion being acceptable. Now, the question of, how far is too far goes out the board, as long as I am doing what my mission is, which is saving the world from decency, saving the world from the savage. I would rather bring the savage and allow the savage to become the norm, allow the rebel, as you might call it, to become the norm, according to his own words. This will kind of make you realize that we are literally living in the side of people's traumas. That's all it is. Whatever traumas they have faced, whether they went through a period of unemployment, so when they get a job, Jesus Christ, we're never going to hear anything. We're never going to hear the end of getting a job from them. Because they struggled so much to get that job. Now their entire identity is around that job. I'm an artisan, I'm this, I'm that, I don't have a 9 to 5. Those people, I don't have a 9 to 5 because the traumas have created this personality that cannot relate to people's struggles. The traumas have created, the traumas of unemployment has created this, what do you think flexing is all about? Is that they created personality out of the struggle. It doesn't become a motivating factor. It becomes a part of their personality. They will mock you over your poverty. They will say that you don't even try. They will mock you at each and every single length. Why? Because now they have a job. Now they have a thing. That's what rose so much depression and all these kind of conversations after COVID, because everybody was not working, because there were people that literally defined themselves by their jobs. So it's a very deep subject to be talked about. I think we have over 8 hours worth of sessions concerning that subject. We are the same people that would, in the same mouth, same way the book of James actually says, out of the same mouth comes out blessing, but at the same mouth comes out a curse. We are the same people that will say we are pushing black people. We are pushing, but at the same time, at no offense, you'll just come out and say, that's your time has passed. You're talking to a person who's in their 30s, and you're telling them their time has passed. Like, how ill-willed or how far does that rebel go at proving or finding love within the hate culture that builds itself on social media, particularly Twitter? How far are you going to lean for that villain character to, in your will, on your willingness to offend? Let's be straightforward here. Howard ruined people.
Easily the most abhorrent segment he has ever done. The It's Just Wrong show had just 4 episodes. Real-life family members would have to answer trivia questions for a chance to win a cash prize of up to $10,000. But if they answer the question wrong, the male counterpart would have to take off a piece of their mother's, sister's, or daughter's clothing.
As much as I'd love to hand you over the money, I mean, you wouldn't let your father spank you for $3,000, would you?
For $3,000?
Yeah. Naked over his lap? That would be really bizarre, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be
a little too much.
Or in one episode, he paid sisters to let their brothers get a handful of their breasts. Formed, changed man.
That interests me zero, being as dirty as I want to be.
In his book, he writes about regrets for some of his past behavior, saying he was self-absorbed and had a hard-ass pose that no longer works. He doesn't even want people to read his other books, including the 1993 bestseller turned blockbuster, Private Part.
Represent me anymore, so it's hard for me to go back and look at it. Those books, they could be hurtful, and they were a little too intense. At that point, my attitude was it was a scorched earth policy. I'm going to blow you out of the water. I'm going to be pure id, and bam, let it all out. That was my approach.
Howard says that he learned through therapy that he was hurting all those years. He was a jester, someone desperate for attention and status. He says he doesn't love the man he was, but he loves the man he is now. In the late 2010s, he started his mission to break the stigma regarding men's mental health.
Howard did things to people that completely messed up their lives. He left people's lives twisted up. People divorced. People almost attempted, because of how far Howard was willing to go to offend. Howard did this with Robin Williams, who came to his show and vowed to never show back. Why? Because of how he was treated when he went there. Howard was in such a messed up position to be willing to drive these numbers that he ruined relationships that he would later want to mend. So which means, for that 1 year, 2 years, 3 years that you've caused that person pain, you were willing to have that. Now, for some people, unfortunately, they would live with that for their whole lives. And they're willing to live with having hurt someone, to come back tomorrow, come back next year, come back 2 years later and say, you know what, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Yeah, you didn't need to do it back then. So what is it that causes people to do that? To be willing to accept the villain as the norm? Where does the villain become a normal character that one wants to accept? Think about it. MacG had to deal with a culture of acceptance within the media space. He vowed to craft his own path, and he found that on YouTube podcasting. And when he did that, it stuck. People loved it. And in the quest for this love, in the quest to pursue this love, or to continue to pursue this love, or to keep driving these numbers and all this type of stuff, he became the person that we see right now. It's that he is at a point where he is willing to offend. There's times when people on his table are like, dude, why are you even saying that? Because he is willing to offend. He's willing to go there without bear in mind, as I stated, people like this tend to come back and want to apologize. No, don't have to apologize. Change your character now so that you don't. But where does it come from? As I stated, the traumas of rejection. Because he was rejected in the media space, he sought to prove his model or his thingy works. Howard did very much the same and now feels terrible. The interview that he did on ABC is a very telling moment because
they could be hurtful and they were a little too intense. At that point, my attitude was it was a scorched earth policy. I'm going to blow you out of the water. I'm going to be pure id and bam, let it all out. That was my approach to it.
Howard says that he learned through therapy that he was hurting all those years. He was a jester, someone desperate for attention and status. He says he doesn't love the man he was, but he loves the man he is now.
It took him that moment to realize you're not dealing with the traumas and your pains the right way. When you don't do that, you're not going to serve correctly. This is what we've been talking about in our discipleship class. To say, if one does not heal from his traumas or his pains that he has gone through, he comes to a position of not seeing himself in the pain. And as a result, he fades to the background. And when you do that to Howard Stern, is that he fell to the background, that things that were painful didn't reflect in that manner. Things that were happy didn't reflect in that manner. Everything was just a joke. And it took him having a therapist to notice, excuse me, this is not normal. And if there's one thing that should scare each and every single one of us, if we do not deal with our traumas the correct way, the Holy Spirit is there to guide us so that we know how to navigate. As I've said, we have a bunch of sessions that we've done in our discipleship classes talking about this, dealing with trauma the correct way, the right way. Why? The thing that should scare us is that if we don't deal with our traumas the correct way, our traumas will reflect in ministry. Our traumas will reflect in everyday life. They'll reflect. And when they reflect, you're not going to serve God correctly. You're going to be half-hearted at serving God. If you're serving rejection, you're going to pursue being loved so much that you'll be willing to fight people that are not fighting you just because they don't want to be next to you. And it's just that. There are people that will literally start fighting you because you don't want to be next to them. It's a weird thing. Why? Because that person is dealing with rejection. And they are not dealing with their rejection the correct way. So that's why they are willing to fight you for not wanting to be next to them. They got to peddle an idea of acceptance by manipulation. They go the Jezebel route. We're going to manipulate people so that you feel like you have to be next to us. And the moment you don't accept that, it builds more of that fight. These people are serving their traumas, serving the traumas. We have entire sessions concerning these things. They are free. You can WhatsApp me and say, Ricky, don't want to be part of the discipleship sessions, but I want the sessions that pertain towards the traumas and how to deal with them and how we know when we are healing and how we know when we are moving forward from them. As I've stated, these sessions are for free. There is no charge. If somebody tells you that we charge, they are lying to you. You're not talking to me. We don't charge anything for the sessions. You can have your access to them. Send me a WhatsApp message and I will forward them. You want to know where are my WhatsApp numbers? You can even go into the community section or you can go into the description. You will find them down there. We have to deal with our traumas and, and for some people, trauma is not always coming from a negative. It's not that people hurt you. You might have suffered trauma in the sense that when you were growing up, you didn't have, your parents didn't have. And as a result of that lack that you saw in your life, it creates this area of love of money because of the lack. So the lack now, it creates this beast out of you of no satisfaction. You are willing to ruin people's lives so that you can make a buck. That's why one of the biggest shows, the longest running show in South Africa, Khumbule Khaya, it's people dealing with traumas. There are people that you'll hear them saying, Into zami azihambi kahle. You say, like, what does into zako not going well have to do with you finding a parent? You're like, what is the relationship between these two things? They are not related at all. But That's what the trauma is. You will start to associate that pain of absence to provision, right? I can't provide. I don't have a job. I can't pay for this. I can't do this. So a father, what does a mother reflect? They reflect provision. So you see people pursuing, people literally living their traumas. Y'all tell me your thoughts down in the comment section. Is the Rick Reality Show, daily Christian commentary videos. If you take anything from this video, take this. If you do not deal with your traumas, you will never, ever serve God correctly. That's why people mix African spirituality with God. Why? They want to mix their traumas with God. There's nothing to do with anything. Some of them spent a very long time feeling very disconnected to family. Some of them grew up as rebellious, disrespectful to their parents, whatnot. And so now, when they are at the height of thingy, they want to reconcile all of that. And how do they start? They start by trying to look back. There's a right way of dealing with things, there's a wrong way of dealing with things. And we are seeing what it's like if you do not deal with things the correct way. It's Ricky. Y'all tell me your thoughts down in the comment section, and I'll speak to you later.